Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers, sisters, viewers, friends of Iqra TV. Welcome to another edition of Real Talk. I'm your host, Iqbal Bana. I hope you've been keeping well last week. Last week we talked about Palestine, and I had two people who were active, who were from Gaza. One of them was from Gaza, and we talked about some of the issues and challenges that people in Palestine and in the West Bank were facing. And we heard of some of the most traumatic issues that the people, our brothers and sisters in Palestine, have been confronted by. I hope you found the program interesting. We learned more after the event, after the program, of some of the tragedies that are going on over there at the moment, which is not being spoken about. But let me, before I start my program today, condemn what has happened in Australia. Islam does not allow anybody to be killed. You have no right to kill anyone, regardless who they may be. So the person who carried out this attack, if they've done it in the name of Islam, we need to condemn that person, and we need to applaud the person who did actually take the gun away from the perpetrator, and in the process got shot himself. So as a TV channel, let me put it absolutely clearly: we condemn what happened in Australia, and we have total sympathies with those who lost their lives, with their families. May Allah give them sabr, and those who are injured, may Allah give them the quickest recovery. Today I want to talk about something that is close to our hearts, and we've not spoken about this for a while, and that is Islamophobia. We were going to talk about this a couple of weeks ago, but unfortunately my guest could not come and join me. But I will come back to this program in a couple of weeks' time again. But I have with me a guest, Abbas Najib, who works for Better Communities Bradford organization, which has been going on for about 5 or 6 years. And he works around this issue about Islamophobia and how people perceive Muslims, and how we can tackle some of the perceptions that people have in the community. And we know that over the last few years, particularly after Southport, particularly after the comments made by politicians, we saw some appalling incidents take place. Unfortunately, a lot of masjids and madrasas were attacked because there was a perception that the attacker was of a Muslim faith. Turned out to be of not a Muslim faith at all. And we have, since 7th of October, when the conflict in Gaza started, we have seen some huge tensions arise in this country as well. And today, for example, the Prime Minister has gone on TV and every media channel to say we will protect the Jewish community as much as we can. Unfortunately, what he hasn't said is that we've seen our faith institutions also being attacked over the last 2 or 3 years, and we know that there are several security operations taking place to try and protect our mosques and madrasas and our communities. And over the last few years, we have seen Islam anti-Muslim hatred, actually the spike in anti-Muslim hatred really take off. Tel Mama, for example, reported that anti-Muslim hatred until 2025, March 2025, had risen to about 6,500. And I know because, Tel Mama used to say that only 20% of Muslims report hate crime or hate incidents. And this has been one of the subjects we've spoken about in the past, where we try to encourage more and more Muslim community members, when they have been the subject of either a hate incident or a crime, and there's a difference between the two, that they should report it to the police. Now, the Jewish community are really good at it. And they have this organization called the CST, Community Security Trust, that any small incident or large, they always report it to the police, so that there's a proper database of the number of incidents that are taking place. Unfortunately, we don't have that mechanism within the Muslim community. Tel Mama was supposed to be that mechanism, but unfortunately, it did not manage to capture the Muslim community's attention to the same extent as the CST did. Now we have a new organization that the government has set up called the British Muslim Trust, which is going to replace Tel Mama, and the British Muslim Trust will be taking on the responsibility of capturing anti-Muslim hate crime data. They've already started some work, and I'm hoping that the chief executive of the British Muslim Trust will be joining me in the new year to try and explain to us exactly what they're going to be doing, what the role is, and how they intend to go about doing what they've been asked to do. So inshallah, we'll hopefully keep you up to date with that. But today I have this young man, Abbas Najib, who, as I say, from the Better Communities Bradford organisation, is also a psychotherapist. Abbas, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Real Talk. Thank you for joining me.
Walaikum salam.
You're a local person.
I am.
You're Bradford born and bred, I presume.
I am.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, Better Community for Bradford. Can you just give us an example, sort of an overview of what it's all about?
Better Communities Bradford was set up about 6 years ago. We have two primary focus areas.
Right.
One is the empowerment of women, where we try to bring as many services and facilities and opportunities into the local area to support women. The second area that we focus on, which is relevant to today's discussion, is trying to educate against the false narratives that are perpetuating anti-Muslim prejudice, anti-Muslim hate in the UK. And how we do that primarily is speaking to non-Muslim audiences, largely in North Yorkshire, some in West Yorkshire, where we speak about how the evidence shows that the narrative being used against Muslims is not accurate.
Okay. Right. So, I mean, you work with, do you work with just public sector organizations, or do you work with private sector organizations as well?
We've worked with organizations in all three sectors.
Right.
So a large body of our work is through public sector organizations. We've also worked with third sector organizations, charities and the like, and we have delivered to private corporations as well.
Right.
For their staff
So
members.
in the public sector, is it local government and NHS?
Local government primarily,
Right.
especially North Yorkshire Council. They've been very good at this. They've engaged us very effectively. So I'd say over 1,000 people have been engaged in North Yorkshire alone, who are all non-Muslims.
Right. So North Yorkshire obviously is not predominantly populated by Muslim community.
No, it's
a
almost
very rural area.
Very rural area, and also very non-Muslim. I'd probably
Right,
say
yeah.
close to 99% of the people we've engaged with in North Yorkshire have been non-Muslims.
Right. I mean, York has got a small masjid, so there is
have.
some Muslim community
I've
there.
been to it, yes.
But I mean, in terms of the third sector, we have a lot of third sector organisations in the Bradford and surrounding districts. So what sort of third sector organisations have you been working with?
Primarily our work is with the people who use our services or service users. We've worked with Alpha United Football Club quite extensively.
Which is basically a Muslim football club.
It's not positioned like that. Just by virtue of where it is, it attracts people from the surrounding areas. Therefore, a lot of the people will be Muslims.
Wahid who runs the club.
That's
Yeah,
right.
who runs the club.
Wahid and Safa.
And they're sort of, they have Muslim ethos in the running of the club, I know. Because they got the Queen's Award for
They
one
did
of the
get the Queen's
services.
Award, yes.
Yes. So it might not be a Muslim club, but predominantly I think 90% of the young people who attend the club.
I think
are
that's
Muslim.
largely by virtue of where we are.
Yeah, I know, and that's by definition, that's why they set it all up in the first place. And mashallah, they do a fantastic job, there's no doubt about it.
Hundreds of children.
Yeah, about 300-400 kids benefit from what they do. And they do a really good job, and may Allah give them more strength. So I mean, that's one organisation you work with. Any other organisations that you work with?
Spencer Youth Project, we've done a fair bit of work with them. Lidget Green Healthy Living Centre.
So what do these organise? I know about Alpha United because they're a football club. That's why.
Spencer Youth Club, they primarily work with young people in mentoring type services.
Right.
So we delivered our Dads and Lads projects through them with their support. Healthy Living Centre, they do similar to what we do for a different audience, although they do less now than they used to do.
All right. So I mean, when you work with these organisations, I mean, let's say for example, Alpha United is virtually a Muslim organisation. It's set up by Muslims, run by Muslims. So what sort of work do you do with them?
In terms of the anti-Muslim prejudice workshops. So the workshops we've had with Alpha United have been primarily around enabling their players, Muslims and non-Muslims, to recognise what anti-Muslim prejudice looks like, what the hate crimes look like, and how to effectively report those hate crimes, and to the organisations to which they can report the hate crimes, and how to deal with such incidents and not being silenced. A lot of young people almost all young people don't report hate crimes, anti-Muslim hate crimes, because they have very little trust in the institutions or that anything will get done.
So who do you signpost them to?
It will be the police, it was Tell Mama, it was to their elders, their parents, to the club managers and coaches to handhold the young people through the processes by which to report.
Okay. I mean, sports is a very completely separate area, because I know lots of young people, both in sports and cricket, in football and cricket, and other sporting areas. You know, when they go outside of our local area, they are confronted by mainly white sort of opponents, for example.
Okay.
And they have suffered quite badly in the past. I know because I've spoken to lots of people around that. But I mean, the other organisations, Spencer Youth Forum or the Healthy Living Project, are they local community organisations that are set up within the Bradford community? Correct. So are they Muslim focused, or are they Asian focused, or what are they?
They are focused on the people who live around the area, and by virtue of where they are, they will be Muslims. Right. But they're not just primarily focused for Muslim communities.
By default,
by default.
By default, which is natural, because if there's a Muslim community living there, 80%, 90% of the participants will be Muslim.
95% of the people who use our services are Muslim women.
Right. Okay.
By virtue of where we are, but we don't exclude anyone for.
Right. No, I'm saying I don't think any organisation would exclude them. But I mean, when you talk about, you know, confronting or challenging people about, you know,
educating them.
Yeah, but you have to confront them, because, you know, if they have got certain mindset, for example, against Muslims, what sort of evidence do you provide to say, you know, look, you may think this, but this is the reality. Right.
That's exactly how we do it, by the way.
Yeah.
You may think this, or you may have heard this.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. Okay. Let's look at what the data says. Let's see what the government statistics say, what the crime figures say, and let's talk about that.
Okay.
And most often than not, almost always, we disprove the false narrative.
So let's take one area, for example, that is, you know, that people like the right-wing politicians constantly talk about, and that is grooming.
Okay.
Right. I mean, you know, this thing about mainly Pakistani Muslim men engaged in grooming activity.
That's false. That narrative is completely false.
So what evidence do you provide to them?
Let's take, for example, the Casey audit.
Right.
Baroness Casey's very recent
audit. The Louise Casey, Baroness Louise Casey,
yes. Okay. Quite a comprehensive audit. She confirmed that only in 1/3 of the cases, 34% of cases, is ethnicity actually collected. So that's, first, we've got less data, but let's use that as a sample. If we were to use that as a sample, Asians make up 9% of people in this country, 9%. Asians represent 7% of the suspects of grooming gang behaviour. The figures for grooming gang behaviour is almost parallel to demographics. The white population is overrepresented by about 1%, the Asian population is underrepresented by about 2%. There are 43 police areas in the UK. Only 3 of them were areas where Muslims were overrepresented, where Asians were overrepresented. What about the rest 40?
Right.
What the media has done, they've deliberately focused on these overrepresented areas and tried to whitewash everything else. The narrative that Muslims are overrepresented in this crime is not accurate. The figures don't bear that out.
So when you say that to a white person who's sitting in front of you, do they then understand and accept that, or do they challenge that even further?
They tend not to challenge that, because what we do is we cite the evidence. We always provide references and citations as to where we've obtained the evidence from.
Right.
So it's not an opinion. And if they provide alternative evidence, then we can have that conversation.
Right.
But what you'll see is the right-wing media and some politicians will just speak on
that's what
opinion.
I mean. The right-wing media focused on certain things, right, in order to vilify the Muslim community.
That's correct.
Particularly the Pakistani Muslim community when it comes to grooming issues. So yeah, I mean, I can't confess to have read the whole of Louise Casey's report, but I mean, in the past, Louise Casey did a report about Bradford and Burnley and Oldham, I think it was, many years ago, where she described the Bradford Muslim community, or the Pakistani community, as being a no-go area. I don't know whether you've seen that report or not. As I say, it's probably about 12 years ago she did a report where she talked about the Muslim community, or the Pakistani community in Bradford, having created no-go areas so that white people can't come in, and that women in those communities were not empowered to go out and, you know, be economically active, which is different to this issue. But I mean, when you say to people, here's the evidence, right? And I'm jumping from one to another.
No,
I'm going to come back to the grooming issue because I'm trying to be devil's advocate.
No, this is good. This
So when you say to people that here's the evidence, which says that the 7%, 9% of the population is black and ethnic minority population, which covers Asians, African Caribbeans, and other minority communities, and the representation of, when it comes to what they call gang grooming, right? Within that is
group-based exploitation.
Group-based child exploitation is unfortunately shown as being much higher, whereas non-group-based sexual exploitation is forgotten about. So do you talk about the other side of it as well?
Group-based exploitation makes up about 3.4% of all child exploitation.
Right.
So it makes
do you talk about the other side of it as well?
Yes, we do.
And how do you respond to that?
They accept it because we provide the evidence.
Right.
You know, we're very clear that when we have our workshops and our discussions, we're very clear and we ask them to challenge us. But we provide the evidence, we provide the citations and the data and the crime statistics. What we don't do is we don't go on a rant and we don't just give opinions, and we don't say things like, I've heard it from a lot of taxi drivers, which are quite high-profile politicians recently did, when asked about whether or not Muslims are trying to enact Sharia law in the country. His opinion was, yes, they did, because I've heard it from taxi drivers. We don't do that. We actually cite the evidence.
Right. Now, obviously, politicians have a huge role to play in that what then becomes the attitude of the wider community. So do you talk to politicians? When you work in North Yorkshire, for example, which is a very rural, white area, where I presume most of them are of the conservative tradition.
I didn't see that. Yes, to answer your first question, yes, I have spoken to politicians, head of council, etc., briefly, but I've not seen a right-leaning attitude in terms of racial or religious harmony.
Right. Because normally people associate the Labour Party with sort of much more left-wing thinking, much more amenable to other communities and other faiths and other religions, and the Tory Party. And we've seen, for example, the leader of the Tory Party recently making comments and statements about immigrants and immigration. And, you know, the members of the Tory Party, or former members of the Tory Party, made some damning, references to the Muslim community, like Suhaila Braverman was alleged to have made, and Priti Patel as well. So, you know, you people have this, maybe falsely, but I'm saying, this notion that members of the Conservative Party usually will have of that type of inkling, you see. So have you come across that?
As we are a charity, I shouldn't really be speaking about political parties because we're supposed to be.
No, but the reality is, and obviously, what have you faced when you talk to them about some of these issues? So when you provide them with evidence, how do they respond?
Now, I can't confirm whether or not this is because it's a public setting, but most people have responded positively.
Right.
Most people have responded with empathy and increased understanding. They've asked for clarification. We get asked for clarification around women's rights. We get asked for clarification around things like why the man has to provide for the wife. We get asked for clarification around things like LGBT issues. And we provide that clarification. Right. And then there's increased understanding. But we always provide the clarification with evidence. And because we provide the clarification with evidence, they seem to be quite accepting of that. People, from what I understand, people are starved of engagement, face-to-face engagement, and genuine conversations, especially post-COVID. So our workshops have been greeted very warmly so far. This conversation is needed throughout the country, and for our experience shows that the conversation is onboarded very well. People engage quite positively with it.
I mean, I'll come back to that because we're going to be going for a break very soon. Conversation is something that, you know, we've been talking about on this program for a very long time. That, you know, we have not really engaged with the local community to try and make them our friends in some cases.
There is hardly some truth to this.
No, I mean, there's no truth. I mean, it's a reality. There are some people who've done it, but then we've had opposition from the other side as well. There's no doubt about it. But it is something that, you know, we have not really engaged in to the extent. And this is a failure, as I've said, in the past, it's a failure on our part. And unless we do that, and unless we engage with people who see us as being different, we will always get this them and us situation. It's something that I've always talked about on my TV program, and this is something that we will talk about when we come back. I hope you've enjoyed the discussion so far. If you want to share your thoughts and ideas, and if you think you want to suggest anything that we could do better, the phone number is on the screen, 01274 214 299. Love to have your thoughts and ideas. Please call in and tell us what you think people like Abbas and others need to do, or what the other side need to do to try and get this dialogue going, creating a better understanding between communities. Because unless we do something very seriously very soon, we're going to see some, Allah bachaye, but we're going to see some appalling scenes taking place in this place. Take care, have your tea, coffee, whatever you like. I'll see you soon, inshallah. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.